So excited about our dialogue today. That's with a prominent leader in our community. I think in 2020, Charlotte Business Journal rated you as the best CEO in the city, or the most admired CEO in the city. He's making a great impact over the Broad River Retail Group. Come on, give them a great big round of applause. Licenses with Ashley Furniture. Man, just got a great opportunity to talk with you and the impact that you're making as a leader, and the things that you're doing through your organization is absolutely phenomenal. And I hope that we get to a lot of that today.
Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
And one of the things that you're doing with your memory makers is what you call your staff. There's going to be a photo that we bring up here on the screen, and I just want you to talk about what's happening with the memory makers and the Lighthouse initiative that you have going on.
First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to call them Potts. You may call them Jacotron.
There you go. Hey,
Jacotron Potts.
That's it.
It's so funny. We were having a prep call last night, and you had sent me some questions, and I said, I was here a couple years ago. I remember a guy, and you knew exactly you knew exactly who you had interviewed a couple years ago. And, and I said, how did you know that was the guy I was thinking about? Yeah. So, anyways, and I'm here with 18 of our folks, 18 fellow memory makers here from the river, Broad River Retail. Some have been with us for many, many years. Some have been with us for a couple weeks.
Oh, wow.
And
welcome.
Yeah, and we love coming to the park. Expo and Convention Center is a great facility to attend the Global Leadership Summit virtual sessions together. So thanks so much for having me. And Chris, thanks so much for inviting me to share a little bit about Broad River Retail and our memory makers.
It's an honor, yes.
I may have missed the first question.
Oh no, the first question is about this beautiful photo that we have here behind us. Tell us about this and what you're doing with your memory makers in the Lighthouse initiative.
Yes. Okay, so these two pictures, you asked for some pictures, we gave you a couple pictures.
Thank you.
Yeah, and they're like in the last 30 days, so they're pretty recent. That was from July 10th from our GMRX. RX is short for, Juliet talked about a prescription in the last talk, and we have a prescription too, how we go win the month. And so our Retail Excellence meeting, which is also a prescription for how we win the month. Our word of the year is Pioneer this year. We have a whole thing around word of the year. Our people selected it. I think Will Luke was on that team, the winning team who helped select the word of the year. They presented it, came with a whole presentation about being bold, being courageous, also about literally us going out to the Northwest. We're opening up a new market, Project Cascade out in Spokane, Washington. So anyways, we have goals this year. Part of this year is an anchoring goal for our 6-year vision by 2030 to double the company's revenues. So that's a financial goal, a revenue-based goal. And the retail team had a Pioneer Promise. And so this was an exercise at the end of a Pioneer Promise because truth be told, at the first 2 months of this year, we dug ourselves a little bit of a hole. And so we got a little bit behind. We prefer to play with a lead. It's always much more fun to play with a lead. But so we've been digging the water out of the canoe ever since really after the first 8 weeks, and doing a phenomenal job. We've got great momentum. I think we'll be all caught up within a couple of weeks or so now from the big hole that we. So, anyways, each store had a commitment to say how much they were going to contribute by the end of September by the end of Q3 of where they would contribute above and beyond the goal to get kind of back on pace. So that was and there was a whole puzzle piece. They each had a frame, and so that was me with our retail leaders, our retail performance leaders, about how we were going to get caught up, and they had the Pioneer Promise. I've given a talk actually this day because we've got a big event planned, building on the heritage. Can I keep going?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yes.
Building on the heritage of our Purpose 828 event, which is on August 28th. Also, since I'm at a Christian-themed, we're faith-driven entrepreneurs. My business partner Manny's over here, and so The original, we did this a few years ago. It was based off of Romans 8:28, and it was actually held on 8:28. And so building off that heritage and legacy, we've got a project called Project Nucleus, which is all about, the retail leader in our stores is so critical to our success. And so not everyone aspires to be a general manager in retail. They don't, it's not maybe you don't say, hey, that's what I want to do. So we really want to pour into them. And so we're planning this big initiative for pioneering the path, Purpose 828 experience. And so part of that was we had surveyed our leaders on what they want, what kind of content would be for this. We're going to pour into you and bring in some keynote speakers. Actually, one of the speakers at the Global Leadership Summit this year is actually coming to our headquarters in Fort Mill, South Carolina to talk. One of our 2 keynote speakers, and then we've got breakout sessions. And they said, but they really want to understand about how you guys come up with monthly budgets. And so I said, that's a really academic talk. But let's just separate that from this 828 day. So I actually gave this presentation July 10th, and I got a little bit vulnerable. I said to our head coach Stacy, I said, listen, I can give the talk about monthly budgets explained. That's pretty dry in and of itself. But I said, in order to do that justice, I got to tell the whole story. I think to add texture and context to like how we do our monthly budgets, I got to take them through the crucible moments of how we got to where we are. And so I got to writing it. I was halfway through it, and I lost all my work. I don't know how you still lose work on I had a friend of mine who was a writer, and he lost his manuscript. I'm like, how do you do that? Surely it's still there. And then it happened to me. So I lost all the work. I had to rewrite it. It ended up being close to 14,000 words, which I was told is like a third of a book. A book's 40,000 words or so. So I was like, well, a third of the way there. Anyways, so I gave that presentation of the way we play the game, the Great Game of Business, our version of the Great Game of Business, monthly budgets explained. And so that was the morning session, and the afternoon session, all about commitments, what they had to focus on. So that was that event on July 10th. And then you asked me about the Lighthouse Fund.
Yeah, the Lighthouse Fund. Yes.
Yeah, if you got another picture on that.
Yeah, next picture, please come up. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, okay. This guy here who's with me is Nanny, who I mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Okay, so there was, I mentioned Project Cascade, Project Nucleus,
Yes.
and then there was Project Upstream a few years ago, and we had a leadership exercise about finding problems in the organization or opportunities that we can improve upon. And one of our leaders came up with Project Upstream, which was kind of like a crisis assistance program for our people, who we call to, who you mentioned earlier, our memory makers. Quick sidebar, why are we memory makers? Our purpose is furnishing life's best memories. Who's that for? That is for others or for other people. And so to reinforce what we're in the business of doing or the purpose of doing, we call ourselves memory makers, very much borrowed or like, instead of saying like employee or teammate or constituent or Disney calls their people cast members. And so we said we're going to when we introduced our purpose statement, we said we're going to call ourselves memory makers, and because we believe purpose begins with identity. And so that'll kind of be our North Star. And so anyways, Project Upstream was presented, but Manny and I really connected with that because when the church we went to, his father-in-law's church for many years, they had a Jeremiah fund, and we always talked about, hey, couldn't we set up a fund to help our people? And we had to cross certain milestones to get in a position to do it. At least that's what we believed. And so fast forward to this year, and or late last year, we began working on it again in earnest. And because when you have 800 people, even if you have a family of 10 people, or like Walker Hayes says, he's got 6 kids, I guarantee you somebody's always got something going on in your family. And then if you have 800 people, we have 800 memory makers, something is always going on with someone at any given moment in time. And so how do you love your people well, care for your people well, have compassion for your people well? Well, we had a precedent-based approach to doing that, which is like, hey, they might send a note to our people department or to Manny or to me, and then we'd hear about that and we would figure out what we could do. But that's like, you don't have confidentiality. You might be embarrassed for what you're going through, and you shouldn't be, because anyone could be one phone call away, one illness, one car wreck, who knows, one catastrophe away in that moment of time. And so we said, we believe some of the key ingredients of success in a business or an organization is people plus product plus and process. And so can we put a process behind this? We're real good on processes and procedures. And so like Craig mentioned, he leans on his habits and his disciplines and the boring stuff. Sometimes in business, you got to have your checklists and your SOPs, your standard operating procedures, and your processes. And so can we have a systematized way, a systematic way to go about caring and compassion? And so we said, hey, we went and there's some great companies in town. And so we got to be friends with Stephen Phelan, who's the chief pastoral officer at Movement Mortgage, and learned about their LoveWorks program that they put in place. And it's like a 3-pronged program, but one of them is a crisis assistance program. And so you kind of understand what to expect from like percentage of people who might need help, how much money, the average gift, put up the guardrails, parameters. And then our company that we actually co-founded, Riverstone Logistics, was also doing the same thing as well. And so we came up with this name, because we want to be a light to everyone we serve. That was kind of the vision for what the people department really want to do with this, some of these initiatives. And so you only get one time to make a first impression. And so Manny and I had an opportunity to be in the Northeast. He's from the Northeast, and his parents are in Providence, Rhode Island. And through our research, we had determined that the most photographed and most iconic lighthouse in the world, arguably, is in Portland, Maine. And we said, well, what if we could go to that lighthouse for the launch of the Lighthouse Fund? And so the people department did a big 60-day kind of countdown and a build-up to like something good is coming, and we were kind of confidential about it. And on July 17th, 1 week after that GMRX meeting I was talking about, we took the town hall from the Portland Headlight and launched our shirts say Be a Light. And so if you donate, if you contribute, you get a shirt that says Be a Light and some other things like that. And so we invited our memory makers to, hey, because other companies had this template, if you want to contribute, invite your people to contribute as well. And so we offered that invitation. Manny and I, had seeded the fund, and we said these funds will be here as a crisis assistance program for our memory makers. The Lighthouse Fund, confidential based, working in partnership with National Christian Foundation and Helping Hands Charitable. And then we had on the first day, and within the first week, over 10% of our entire population have already signed up for payroll deduction to contribute to the Lighthouse Fund. And here's probably the coolest story. So some of the funds have already been dispersed because there's maybe some pent up demands, things, medical, hospital, transportation issues, rent issues, eviction issues, et cetera, et cetera. And someone who signed an application, filled out an application, confidential, and we don't make the decisions. We give the parameters to Helping Hands Charitable. They'll ask some questions. They'll then send the checks out to our to the landlords or the hospitals, what have you. But someone who received the funds then turned around and signed up for payroll deduction right after that. Isn't that cool?
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Charlie is on fire today. I'm telling you.
It's a Wednesday.
The river is flowing.
I get to be with Potts, man. I get to be with Potts.
The river is flowing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I really love your passion, and particularly about the people that work in your organization. What keeps you focused on the main thing with all the demands of having a profitable business and all the demands of making sure that the business thrives and survives? How is it that you're able to make the main thing to even create space for such a thing as the Light Fund?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I want to answer it this way. It took a long time. The whole overnight success, 20 years in the making. I think that's like my business career right there. They don't see, like, we had so many crucible moments as an organization. The first year, and I'm not a co-founder, so I joined the first year in business. They nearly went out of business with the first store. Business plan called for a second store. They got through that. They pushed through. The Great Recession, the Great Financial Crisis was a crucible moment when it was all about, like, how do we lengthen our runway? And that, when overnight your store sales, like, get cut in half, and then half the companies in your industry are going out of business, there's a lot of fear and anxiety in the world. 2015, we broke all of our bones through an ERP conversion that went awry and some other things. We were bleeding cash, losing money, and we survived because hope isn't a strategy, but faith is. But
Hold on, wait a minute. You dropped one right there. Okay. Say that one more time for us.
Hope isn't a strategy, but faith is. I'd read Good to Great, Jim Collins' book, and he talks about the Stockdale paradox. And Admiral Jim Stockdale was in the Hanoi Hilton in Vietnam, a POW for 8 years. And he was asked. Jim Collins asked him. They were walking through the Stanford campus and said, "Well, hey, I'm curious how you made it. Tell me about the people who didn't make it. Was it all the pessimists?" And he goes, No, it wasn't the pessimists. Who didn't make it? He goes, well, the optimists, because they would always be thinking like, I'm going to get out by Christmas. And Christmas would come and go, they wouldn't make it. I may have turned this off, sorry. Christmas would come and go, I didn't make it. I'm going to get out by Easter. Easter would come and go, they wouldn't make it. And they'd eventually lose hope. Or the negative folks wouldn't make it. But the pragmatists and he said, I made it because I embraced, it was this juxtaposition of I embraced the brutal reality of the current conditions as they were. I was pragmatic about that, but I never lost sight or lost faith that I will one day use this extreme test as a testimony to tell people about it.
Wow.
And that kind of position, the Stockdale paradox, holding those two different opposing thoughts in your head at one time is what helped him get through it. And so I would get into a debate where someone said, well, Charlie, you're just delusional. You think we're going to get through this? Hope isn't a strategy. And but faith is. But it wasn't faith untethered from like business logic or business sense. I think I had a pretty good idea of why we had broken all of our bones, and I thought they were fixable problems that we could solve for. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I knew that we could maybe use this. And having seen, what I would say, the way I would describe it, was God's active hand on the business through other trials and tribulations. There was no reason not to trust in that in our current situation. So, you asked me a question like, I would tell you that we got through a lot of issues, and then it takes a lot, like getting through a lot of those issues and things that you're not good at. Sometimes it's just like surviving. Most companies don't die of starvation; they die of indigestion. And so what Juliet was talking about, which was like what you're not doing list. The note I wrote in my book, it reminded me, or my notebook, it reminded me of what someone said to Steve Jobs, who created these great products. What are you most proud of? And he said, I'm most proud of what we didn't do. And so having that discipline to say no to several things so you don't get indigestion. Because you can we got to go open a store, we got to do this, we got to do that, and kind of, but are you ready for it? Do you have the financial optics? Do you have the disciplines to do it? And sometimes you have to kind of walk away from some things before you're ready, before your character develops, before your processes develop. And so we began kind of looking out and saying, all right, we got to start challenging our people to be intrapreneurial, to be entrepreneurs within the business. So hey, you can come to me if you want to ask me a question, but what do you think? And we got some great talented people, and they are the reasons that we're the type of company that we are today and have gotten through it. And so I need to get out of the way a whole lot of times and let them kind of do their thing. And so then I just can focus on other things like that might be 2, 3, 4 years out. Managing our real estate strategy. Those are key decisions, and they take a long time where we're going to put stores. And but then also, I would tell you, before I was promoted to CEO, I wasn't managing. I didn't have this. I wasn't managing the some of the banking relationships or the relationships with our attorneys, and I had to kind of go run to those weaknesses and kind of make them strengths, because I thought that that's what the company needed from me. by the very same token, like we weren't a very budget-minded company. We certainly weren't hitting our budgets in 2015. And so it was something that like was a weakness that we had to develop as a muscle, but we had people who came in there who had that expertise and had to listen to them. And so I would tell you right now that we're very good at, Eisenhower has a quote that says, it's not the plan that's important, it's the discipline and muscle of planning. Mm-hmm. And so if you can become like a good, always be like looking around corners and planning and forecasting and thinking about that. But you can sleep a whole lot better at night when you kind of know what your lead measures are going to produce on your budget. And that sounds like really boring to get like fall in love with budgeting. We're already starting our 2026 budgeting season. We're already I got a whole document I got to complete about budget assumptions document. But going through all that like prep work and planning for like the following year, and then kind of getting into doing rolling quarterly forecasts, and then entrusting your people to be entrepreneurs, all that helps. All that helps. And then I would say, but sometimes when you feel like you can't get there yet, and sometimes you're just like surviving and getting through some of these trials and tribulations while the business kind of grows and develops. I mean, there's a book called The E-Myth. It's not about like, it's not about the like e-business, it's about the entrepreneur's myth. And the whole mindset thing there is to work not in your business, but on your business. So create that discretionary time, that time for reflection to be able to work on your business and solve the problems that need to solve so that you can kind of create that space. And, and then surround yourself by the wisdom of counselors. Some of our greatest growth was when we were in a performance group. Other companies like us, other Ashley licensees like us, who we could benchmark against and learn like what we should strive to achieve and how they're doing that, and asking questions and trading best practices. There's a lot to come from that. So who are you listening to? Where are you getting your advice from? And how are you benchmarking yourself against kind of the art of the possible, art of the actual? So again, I will try to give you shorter answers.
Oh, no. I think what you're giving is a wealth of knowledge, and particularly from the perspective where you are a CEO. And I think a lot of times it's easy to create stories about what it's like to be a CEO. So it's great to hear your perspective. I'm going to make this statement. I just want you to react to what I'm about to say. In 2015, faith was the strategy, because faith without works is dead. So not only did you have faith, but you put the work in. On the other side of your faith, there have been people who are now new employees because you had faith in 2015, who are now able to feed their children, who are now able to pay their bills, who are now able to build a career. How does it feel? How does it hit you to know that your moment of faith in 2015 is helping somebody right now in 2025?
That's a great question. Well, I think that I have to tell myself the same things that like I might have to tell our new hires is I have to remind myself of the stories of how we got here, and that not to take it for granted and to remember, because sometimes it's so easy to forget. It's so easy to forget kind of when God showed up and showed out in those crucible moments. And so I just got to remind myself a lot of times that, to go back to remember, because he who was faithful then, why wouldn't he be faithful now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I think that your impact is phenomenal. I can tell that exudes out of all of your comments, the impact and the love you have for the people that you get the opportunity to serve as their CEO. What would you say in our time of closing to inspire leaders to continue to show up every day to make a contribution and impact that may one day show up 10 years later that benefits somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, you've had some really profound questions. And I want to give a great answer to this. First of all, it doesn't matter what role you're in. And I think everyone in this room knows that. They're all working on their leadership. and want to have that personal growth and development. But sometimes it's good to hear, even though you don't have to be the CEO to lead. And by the way, if you do want to be the CEO, make sure that that's what that you want it for the right reasons. There's a book Patrick Lencioni wrote called The Motive, and it's not about the title or that you just kind of get there and make sure there's something stirring in you about who you want to serve and why you want to be that. Make sure the motive's right, but also know that you can lead and influence wherever you are, and how, first of all, how you model what your disciplines and behaviors are, words of encouragement that you say to others, you're leading them. Words of encouragement you say to yourself, you're leading yourself. So I'd say, first of all, lead yourself well. It doesn't matter what title that you have. And there's a lot on that you can influence your boss or your manager just as much as you can influence your direct reports. And then we sometimes can not think about what we might say, how that might influence folks. I had someone come up to me. I have found that I really like mentoring. I never had mentored anyone. I was like, I'm not even, but someone had asked me, a new CEO, he said, hey, and by the way, I want you to mentor me. And so he would structure the agenda. We'd meet every 2 weeks. And it was like one of my favorite meetings, for those, for that. And we'd kind of read a book together and go through our insights and learnings. And so, and then recently, I had someone who said, hey, and this was maybe in 2023 or 2024, and I'd given a talk at a movement day in 2018, I think it was. And he said, yeah, I heard you 5 years ago, and I've been meaning to reach out to you. Yeah. And it was like 5 years later. Wow. So you never know one thing that you might say, how it might resonate with someone, and what they may want to see or talk to you about that, or just it might influence their life in some way. So I would be cognizant that your words have power and impact, and so then we may think more thoughtfully about those words that we choose to say to others, or be more intentional. Like if you're thinking it and you want to encourage someone, just say it. Just say it. Maybe they need to hear it. And I need to tell myself that so much more often. Or if someone's on your heart, or you're thinking about someone who's going through something. When I've gone through a crisis or something, I still remember the people who called me to check on me or texted me. And so if they're on your heart, your mind, they're probably on your heart, your mind for a reason, and act on it. Don't be afraid to act on reaching out to people. Just let them know, kind of, hey, I'm thinking about you. How are you doing?
Man, this is great. Can we give Charlie a great big round of applause? And as you said so eloquently, when you get the opportunity to encourage someone, you should do it. Mm-hmm. I want to say, based upon the small amount of time that I've had to talk with you, thank you for being a man of faith that you are. It was a faith decision in 2015, and every day you wake up, you're walking out your faith boldly before people. And based upon what I see, I'm grateful to have had this opportunity to share the stage with you, a dynamic leader like yourself that's making an impact beyond many years. People will talk about that moment when you said, no, we can do it. Faith is a strategy. So I'm grateful for that. Can we give a round of applause one more time?
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. To watch this episode, go to youtube.com/@storiesfromtheriver. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.